Good afternoon. Welcome to the 21st Annual Lexington Bluegrass Area Minority Business Expo. I am Jay Alexander from 107.9 The Beat. I will be your host this afternoon. Thank you so much for attending this great event. Let me start by introducing the folks on the DS, please. To my right, your left, Anthony Wright for the Minority Business Expo. Monique Kirkendall-Quarterman, gold sponsor of Kentucky Innovations. Mr. Barry Swanson, gold sponsor from the University of Kentucky. Mark Day, gold sponsor of Bluegrass Airport. Tyrone Tyra, gold sponsor of Commerce Lexington. Mayor Linda Gordon, gold sponsor of City of Lexington. On my left, your right, Darlene Barber, chair of the Minority Business Expo Board of Directors. Sion Jackson, gold sponsor, Chase Bank and MBE committee chair. Colleen Eldridge, our morning speaker. Ms. Celeste Warren, our keynote speaker for this afternoon. And Mr. John Wong, presenting sponsor of Fifth Third Bank. Please give all these folks a big round of applause. I would like to welcome Anthony Wright for our invocation to the mic. Anthony.
Good afternoon. You all look wonderful from here. So glad to have you here at the MBE. Let us pray. Our Father and our God, we thank you. We come to you first to say thank you. Thank you for the many bountiful blessings you've given us. Blessings we have not deserved, but as yet, because of your grace and mercy, you share with us each day. Lord, we thank you for this gathering, this event, those who have worked so hard to put it together, because we know the intent is to serve your people. Lord, you are everything, and from everlasting to everlasting, thou art God. We thank you for how you work through our lives and in our work to make a difference in our community and certainly to take care of our families. God, we just ask you that you create an opportunity here for people to expand their horizons, to have more opportunity for work, to work together as opposed to tear each other apart. And so, God, we thank you for this meal, the blessed food that we're about to eat. Those that prepared it and have certainly displayed it in a beautiful array, and let us enjoy it, Lord, that it might be nourishing to our bodies. In Jesus' name, amen.
Lunch will now be served. "21 years of the Minority Business Expo. We would not be here without our presenting sponsor, Fifth Third Bank. They have been with us for the past 21 years. Please give them a big round of applause. Our gold sponsors, Toyota of Kentucky, the University of Kentucky, the City of Lexington, Commerce Lexington, Fayette County Public Schools, Elaine Allen, Kentucky Innovation, Bluegrass Airport, and Chase Bank. Our silver sponsors, PNC, KC, TCS, LM Communications, 107.9 The Beat, and our bronze sponsors, Traditional Bank, Messer, Louisville Water, AARP, Lexington Police Department, West Banco, and the Hyatt Regency. Let's give our sponsors a big, big round of applause. I'll be remiss, he just caught my eye, just recently named 19th president of Kentucky State University. Dr. Acapo is here. Doctor, good to see you. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome to the mic my friend and the mayor of Lexington, Linda Gordon.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you so much, Jay. Well, welcome everyone. Isn't this a wonderful luncheon? I think we need to thank our food people. Yay! Very unique and delicious. Councilmember James Brown, thank you for being here. Welcome to everyone to the premier business conference in Kentucky for minority and women-owned businesses. This year, we're celebrating the program's 21st anniversary. 21 years and still going strong and growing stronger. Over 500 people are participating in this year's MBE. Compare that to the Expo's first year, 2002, when there were just under 100 attendees. So congratulations to all of our organizers. I want to give a shout out to someone who's not here, my friend and our wonderful friend here, Pat Tatum. Yes. I'm always very impressed with this event. I've attended several expos during my years on the council and now as mayor. I know that the people who come to this conference, they come, and everyone from the attendees to the keynote speakers leave with new ideas, new contacts, and new strategies to help grow their businesses, grow your businesses. The Expo offers quality networking, educational workshops, opens doors to new opportunities, and addresses the real needs of minority businesses. So congratulations and thanks to all of the volunteers who make the Minority Business Expo possible, and especially a word of appreciation to this year's chair, Sion Jackson of Chase Bank. Thank you so much, Sion. Yes. Thank you and enjoy. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you, Mayor. The Lexington Bluegrass Area Minority Business Expo celebrating 21 years of bringing minority and women-owned business owners together for the purpose of networking, learning, and finding opportunities to grow. It's been 21 years of hard work, great memories, and wonderful testimonies that began with a vision back in 2002. During that year, Milton Dahoney of the Lexington Fayette Urban County Government Chief Administrative Officer, he decided to create a platform for businesses to showcase what they do and hopefully build contracts and business opportunities. Milton shared that vision with some individuals who he thought could help breathe life into the ideas of the Lexington MBE. Just like all new programs, the idea had to be nurtured. And as it grew, it evolved into one of Kentucky's leading business conferences, drawing nearly 600 people in 2016 from Kentucky, Ohio, Tennessee, and various other states. The success of the MBE has drawn some well-known speakers, including Stedman Graham, George Frazier, Patricia Russell McLeod, the Big O, Oscar Robinson, Lisa Nichols, Chris Gardner, Dr. Farrah Gray, Phil Wilkins, Randall Pinkett, Lauren Lake, Sherry Riley, my friend D.A., Derek Anderson, and Tony Delk, just to name a few. Leadership of the MBE's gotten more creative as individuals such as Lamar Davis, Lisa Higgins Horde, Anthony Wright, Janet Beard, Marilyn Clark, Sharita Miller, Mike Runyon, Tiffany Madsen, Darlene Barber have taken the helm as chairs and have continued to move the conference forward. The MBE went high-tech in 2013 with the introduction of online registration and an email campaign pushed out to nearly 5,000 people. We continue that today. In 2014, we added the exhibition area, the component of the Business Resource Center, a one-stop shop of business service providers in one area to answer personal business questions. Many additional organizations contributed to the growth of the Expo, and our valued media partners, LM Communication, 107.9 The Beat, Graphic Design Solutions, and B2E Network.biz LLC. We have special award recognition. Darlene, are you coming up to recognize the Patsy Tatum Scholarship winner? Darlene?
Good afternoon. On behalf of the Executive Board and the Planning Committee of the Lexington Bluegrass Area Minority Business Expo, we would like to recognize the following sponsors and longtime committee members for their continuous support and dedication to this annual event. The first award goes to LM Communications. If the General Manager, Craig Olive, is in the audience, could you come forward, please? While he's walking, I'm going to read this. It says, in appreciation for 10 years of support and sponsorship of the Lexington Bluegrass Area Minority Business Expo, we're presenting this to you. Thank you. Our next award goes to Jay Alexander. Jay is the Program and Music Director at 107.9 The Beat. He served on the MBE committee for the past 10 years, but has been involved with the Expo for many years before that. Says, in appreciation for 10 years of leadership and commitment as a committee member of the Lexington Bluegrass Area Minority Business Expo. And he's going to get our picture. And last but not least, our final award for our special presentation goes to Johnny Martinez. He has served on the MBE committee for the past 21 years. He's a small business owner, consultant, graphic designer, and he personally designs our Expo program every year. He maintains our website and social media campaigns. Welcome, Johnny, to the stage. And it says, in appreciation for 21 years of leadership and commitment as a committee member of the Lexington Bluegrass Area Minority Business Expo.
Thank you all. Thank you guys.
Congratulations.
I'd like to echo that. With Johnny, with being the board chair my first year, Johnny is somebody that a lot of this could not happen. So he's done this for 21 straight years, so owe him a debt of gratitude for everything that he does behind the scenes. So I get the opportunity to recognize the recipient of the Pat Tatum Scholarship, and I like to, as Mayor Gordon mentioned, Mrs. Pat is not here with us today. She's here with us in our hearts. But everyone on our committee knows I like to kind of razzle Miss Pat at times on our meetings. But she is somebody that this award represents. She represents respect. She represents someone that is honorable, and we created this award last year to make sure that we give her the proper recognition for the work that she's put in over the years. So this is our second official year. The recipient of the Patricia C. Tatum MBE Scholarship. This is given to small business entrepreneurs who have demonstrated the desire to build and grow businesses from the ground up. So this year's recipient is Octavia Cruz, owner of ISR with Octavia LLC. Octavia, could you come up, please?
While she's walking, I'll just add, she does have a booth in the exhibition hall, so please go visit her. That was a part of the scholarship as well.
You got me. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. And I know I speak for Lynn Martin, president of LM Communication, and Mr. Olive. Thank you guys so much. I'd like to welcome to the microphone now John Wong of Fifth Third Bank.
Good afternoon. Great to see everyone here today partake in this wonderful event for the community. I am John Wong, Business Banking Market Executive for Fifth Third Bank. And as many of you may know, our relationship with the Lexington Minority Business Expo extends all the way back to 2002. That was when we first joined the inaugural conference as a presenting sponsor. And now, 21 years later, we're still here because we truly live and breathe MBE's mission to support and nurture minority and women business owners. At Fifth Third Bank, we deliver value to our business owners through 4 key principles. Number 1, we keep the customer at the center of everything we do. It was Ray Kroc who is credited with building McDonald's into the most successful global fast food restaurant that had said, take care of the customer and the business will take care of itself. Number 2, we work hard to deliver world-class customer experience every time. Number 3, we engage and we invest in the communities that we serve to make a positive change. And finally, number 4, we provide effective business solutions to entrepreneurs. At Fifth Third Bank, we recognize and appreciate that it is the dream, the vision, and the passion of entrepreneurs like many of you here today, and as many of you will become, that build, sustain, and strengthen the American economy, leading it to be the largest and strongest in the world today. That is an endeavor that we are proud to be a part of, and we are here to support you. Now, it is my honor and privilege to introduce our keynote speaker today. Celeste Warren has over 3 decades of experience in change management, organizational design, and corporate culture. More specifically, acting as a senior leader in diversity and inclusion. Growing up in small-town Pennsylvania, Celeste witnessed firsthand the impact of inequity and exclusion on her father. But it was also from this experience and his response that she learned the strongest traits of her leadership. This includes inner strength, patience, self-confidence, and faith. These childhood lessons have continued to fuel her passion to work with leaders to enhance the employee experience within their organization, driving a culture of inclusion and belonging. Celeste strives to make an impact on her organization and the world around her. Her work has been recognized by many organizations. Her articles on diversity, equity, and inclusion have been featured in many national and global publications. And she has had the opportunity to speak at various events across the world. Celeste earned her bachelor's degree right here at the University of Kentucky, and she earned her master's from Carnegie Mellon University. She is a wife and proud mother of 2 wonderful children. Please join me in giving a warm, hearty bluegrass welcome to Celeste Warren.
Thank you, John, for that wonderful, wonderful introduction. My children would be very proud. Well, it's good to be back in the bluegrass state. The last time I was here, outside of graduating, I'm not going to say what year that was, long time ago, many decades ago, Rupp Arena didn't look like this. The city didn't look like this. The university didn't look like it does, but it has grown. The city has grown, and I am so very proud to have spent many of my formative years here. I come back a grown woman, tempered woman, and mother and wife. And so I want to just thank Sion and Darlene and Tiffany for the warm welcome that they have given me since I arrived here yesterday, giving honor to this dubious guests that are sitting here at the table, and of course, the Honorable Mayor. And I have to say a shout out to Representative Brown for cleaning his car and picking me up yesterday from the airport. People told me that, how did his car look? How did his car look? And it was fine until he opened the trunk. But I really appreciate him. I want to talk a little bit about, and I know I have until a little less than about 30 minutes, but I want to talk a little bit about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I know I have a mixed crowd here. Some of you are entrepreneurs, you are business owners, some of you are executives and professionals in larger organizations, and this message is for all of you. But I have a very special message at the end for those of you that are in corporations. I've been working at Merck now, this is my 26th year. Merck is a pharmaceutical organization. We're in over 120 different countries. We have close to 70,000 employees. And we have been involved in global supplier diversity for 35 years. We are a member of the $1 Billion Roundtable, one of the first pharmaceutical companies to have over $1 billion in our spend with diverse suppliers, women-owned suppliers, LGBTQ+, and veteran and persons with disabilities. I want to have a special message at the end for all of you all in that respect. But let me talk to you first about DE&I. We are living in challenging times. We know it from the standpoint of what's happening from a political standpoint, from a social standpoint, from an economic standpoint. There's such divisiveness that's happening around the world. And when we think about the headwinds that are hitting diversity, equity, and inclusion, we know that everything, the issues wrapped around every issue is diversity, equity, and inclusion, whether that be immigration, whether that be gun control, certainly the decisions that the Supreme Court is making, but every decision, everything that's going on involves DE&I. You can't walk out of your house without hearing something around diversity, equity, inclusion, because diversity is differences, inclusion is how you leverage those differences, and I'll talk a little bit more about equity in a few. But we know that diversity, the impact that diversity, equity, and inclusion is having on the business landscape is here to stay. And there's been a lot of changes, especially over the last few years. The first is around changes in how we work. Who would have thought January 2020, when we opened our eyes after I'm sure many of you were having a great New Year's Eve and headaches and everything else when you woke up, but who would have thought that in just a few short months that we would be sequestered at home, this pandemic would be hitting the world, our children wouldn't be going to school, not physically going to school. We'd have to rethink how we thought about our work, supporting our families, health care, all of those different things just hit us. And so from the standpoint of corporations and companies and businesses, leaders and managers had to rethink how they thought about the workplace and how they needed to be leaders. Being a leader and what made you successful 5, 10, 15 years ago wasn't necessarily what would make you successful moving forward. And in today's age, you need to be able to lead inclusively. You needed to be able to manage inclusively. You needed to be able to have empathy and emotional intelligence. Those were the leadership traits that now, especially with the generations coming into the workplace, that we have to pay attention to and make sure that we're doing well. So when we think about that, what is it that
we need to be doing from that perspective. And leaders now are being evaluated more and more on what we used to call years ago those soft skills. Well, they're coming to the forefront because they're critical in being able to create an environment that you need. Secondly, the changes of how we work. We know that before the pandemic, maybe 90% of the work was always done in an office, on a factory line, in a research lab, wherever, but somewhere physically you were at. Post-pandemic, 30, 40, 50% of the jobs are remote and virtual. Never saw that in the history of the United States. And so that brought new meaning around how we lead, how we work, and not evaluating someone on old-fashioned FaceTime, but evaluating them on the merit of the work that they are doing and not where they were getting the work done. And then lastly, the responsibility of corporations and companies has expanded. When I got into the workforce many, many years ago, we talked about how it was important from the standpoint of, oh, well, we just want to make sure that you just focus on the business. Just focus on the business. That's all you need to do. And we know now that investors, shareholders, your employees, your customers, they don't just care about the bottom line, the top line, but they also care about what role you're playing in making the world a better place. The role of social corporate activism. After the murder of George Floyd in 2020, you saw all the statements of solidarity blowing up all of the internet and the social media. We stand by our African American colleagues. But what's happened 3 years later? Have those just been statements of solidarity, or have they truly been integrated into the fabric of these companies? And in many cases, unfortunately, they have not. And so we need to be able to make sure that we are thinking about how we're approaching it. We have to look holistically around diversity, equity, and inclusion to ensure that it's embedded throughout the organization. This isn't a program. It's a strategic imperative. And what I mean by making sure that you're embedding it throughout the fabric of the organization, but you have to look at it from the standpoint, how are you integrating diversity, equity, and inclusion into your marketing strategies? Are you considering those underserved communities of customers when you put your marketing strategies and your business strategies together, as an example? We think about community and social responsibility and internal and external communications. We think about human resources and all of those things that are involved from the alpha to omega of the employee. We think about supply chain, partnerships with diverse suppliers. All of those things we need to be thinking about as we weave DE&I into the fabric of the organization. Policy and government affairs. People ask me about the evolving role of DE&I practitioners, and I said, if you aren't on top of what's happening, not just from a federal government and what's happening in DC, but also at the state level, which is where most of the battleground is. But if we don't understand that and the impact that it has around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and employees and people, then we are not doing our jobs effectively. But not only do you have to make sure that you've embedded it into the fabric of the organization, but you also have to make sure you're embedding it through the life cycle of the employee, of the person. From the moment that you start recruiting them, and they're a candidate, not even through your doors yet, but all the way through the onboarding process. How are you welcoming them into the organization? Do they see people that look like them? Do they see people that have the same ideals that they do? But also different perspectives, and how is that respected in the organization? How are you looking at advancing them? Are you making sure that they have the same equity when you're looking at promotions? How are you making sure that you are developing them? Are you being fair around that? Are you looking at your learning and development programs? All of these things you have to take into account as you are looking at your organization. But when you do both, when you weave it into the fabric of the organization, and when you also embed it into the employee, you will see the benefits. It will create a competitive advantage, especially in this day and age. And why? Because let me talk to you a little bit about what we call the employee ripple effect. When you focus on the employee, when you focus on the people, and you create an environment around them of psychological safety, of empowerment, of inclusion, of equity, what you will see is the benefits in your business. You're going to see an ability to innovate and creativity. You're going to see stronger marketing and sales strategies. If you do employee opinion surveys, you're going to see how they show up in their opinions and how they rate the company. But you'll see an internal impact to your business. And then, further in the ripple effect, you'll see the impact to your customers, your marketing, your shareholder value, if you're a public company, your global policies. You'll see an increased social and economic impact. You'll be viewed by candidates as the employer of choice. You'll have better investor value and shareholder and market value as well. So you start in the center and focus on the employee, focus on the person, the people. Create that environment around them where they can do what you want them to do, and do it by bringing their authentic selves to work, by being who they truly are. And that doesn't mean waking up out of bed and just throwing something on and coming into work. That means besides bringing their functional skills and capabilities into the workplace, they can bring their cultural experiences as well. As an example, in our space, in pharmaceuticals, we have to understand what gets in the way of patients in underserved communities, underfunded communities, undervalued communities. What gets in the way of them not getting the health experiences that we want from our medicines and our services. And so in order to do that, we can't simply interpret what we think is happening in those communities of those patients. But we have to hire people from those communities that are sitting at the table and telling us what's getting in the way. What are those obstacles? So they're bringing their functional discipline, whether they're a scientist, an engineer, a marketing, a salesperson, but they're also able to bring their cultural experiences. And they're able to add those experiences into the strategies and the business strategies that help us to bridge the gap between our organization and our customers and our patients. So it doesn't make any difference whether you're selling medicine or if you're selling widgets. Your service will be greatly increased. Your organization will be greatly increased. Your profits and your revenues will be greatly increased if you focus on the employee, the people in the center. Create that environment around them where they can succeed, and you will see what we call opportune costs, opportune revenue and opportunities, because the value of that employee has gone up exponentially. So I said I was going to talk a little bit about equity, and I want to talk a little bit about that as well, because many people don't understand what equity is. And I'm sure a lot of you have seen this illustration before, but let me talk a little bit about what I mean by it. The work that we're doing now in the area of equity is extremely important, and it's not for the faint at heart. We're doing this body of work because that is the only way that we're going to get to true equality. And so people sometimes interchange equity and equality, but they're very different. And because we're doing this equity, this work of equity, it's causing disruption in the organizations. It's causing disruption in society because people don't seem to understand why it's important. So if you look at the illustration, the first illustration, you see they're all standing on one rock. The person to your right can't see over the fence. The person in the middle can barely see over the fence. The person on the left can see over the fence very well. When we get to the second illustration, we've given the person on the right 3 rocks, the person in the middle 2 rocks. Those are acts of equity. The things that we have to do, the programs we have to put in place, the strategies that we have to put in place around recruiting people, around advancement, around promotions, to make sure that everybody can see over the fence. And that fence, in my analogy, are all the systemic issues that exist in companies, in corporations, in society. Racism, sexism, homophobia, xenophobia, the atrocities that happen to persons with disabilities, misunderstood veterans, all of these different things that happen, and they're institutionalized, they're in the system, and the fence is there. But what's happening as far as that disruption, the person on the left that was standing on one stone in the first illustration is still standing on one stone in the second illustration. Well, they're now looking to their right and saying, well, how come they have 3 rocks and they have 2 rocks and I only have 1? That's not fair. I thought diversity and inclusion was about inclusion and everybody being treated fairly. That doesn't seem right. And how do those questions manifest themselves in the workplace? Well, why do you need a women's leadership program? Why do we need supplier diversity? What's so important about that? What advantage is that to the organization, to our business, to our bottom line? Well, why do you have resource groups, employee resource groups? Why do we need a black resource group and a women's resource group? Why are those important? Why do you have to have special diversity sourcing strategies to recruit people? And they're asking these questions. And they're asking them not at the water cooler, not behind closed doors. They're asking them in the offices, in the conference rooms, and yes, in the boardrooms, in the C-suites, on the plant floor. They're also asking them in the research labs. They're asking them with customers. Customers are asking them of us. And so we have to be able to answer those questions. We have to be able to make sure that they understand what's happening. They have to understand the reason why we need those rocks there, the reason why that fence is there and why we need to do that. They need to understand how that fence manifests itself to people of color, to women, to those in the LGBTQ plus community. What does it look like? How does it manifest itself? They need to understand that. They need to understand why we have to put these programs and policies and practices in place. And so the work that we do as we are putting those rocks in place, as we are also trying to tear down that fence, we have to also have conversations, and sometimes they're very uncomfortable conversations, with the person who is standing on one rock in both those illustrations, so they understand. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're constantly educating them, but we provide them with resources, tools, books, articles to educate themselves and then engage in a dialogue. And that dialogue is going to be uncomfortable at first, but just like building muscle mass, it starts to get a little easier. Because the only way that we're going to be able to get to that third illustration where the rocks are gone, we don't need the rocks, we've torn down those systemic issues, the fence is gone, and everybody can see the beautiful mountains ahead. That's equality. That's where we want to get to. But in order for us to get there, We have work to do. And we have to do all of this work to truly create that inclusive environment. One of the last things that I want to say before I finish up is diversity, equity, inclusion is like mowing the lawn in the summertime. You can't just do it once and expect it to stick. You can't just have a program. You can't just have one thing that I'm going to do and maybe that'll help. This is a marathon. It didn't get this way overnight. It's going to take a while for us to tear down that fence. And so we have to continue to stay at it and continue to work at it to make sure that we are doing what we need to be doing in this particular case. I said I had a message for those of you that are in this space of supplier diversity. And it's a very specific message. As I said, we've been involved in supplier diversity. Last year was our 35th year, 35 years of explaining to executives why it's important, explaining the importance of engaging with diverse suppliers, explaining why it's important to the nation's economy. And sometimes it goes in one ear and goes out the other. Sometimes it starts to sink in. But we know that it's very, very important for us to make sure that we are working with diverse suppliers. For every $1 million that a company spends with diverse suppliers, that means $2.1 million to the economy. That's 13 jobs that are created by these companies. And most of those jobs go to diverse candidates and employees. Last year, we're very proud to say that we had $2.5 billion in spend with diverse suppliers. That's about 14% of our spend, our procurement spend. And that didn't happen overnight. It took a lot of work. It took a lot of discussions. It took a lot of partnerships. And it is not something that will happen if you just say you have a diverse supplier program. You have to put the strategies in place. You have to partner with these organizations and these entrepreneurs. You have to build capabilities in them. You have to support them. You have to help them to understand what the process is to becoming tier 1, tier 2 customers and partners. It's not just about, let me go ahead and put the spend in place, but you have to do those acts of equity. Because if you are not intentionally inclusive, then you are unintentionally exclusive. This is not something that just happens through osmosis. This is not something that's going to happen if you just, when I used to laugh and talk with pastors, this isn't an H&P budget, hope and a prayer. This is something that you have to work towards. You have to build relationships. You have to put programs in place to do that. A couple of examples. We have a partnership with Drexel University in Philadelphia, and we put together a program for minority business owners to teach them about some of the things that you are learning through this summit here. But it's a months-long program, 3, 4, 5 months. And we really teach them things about enhancing their brand and digital capabilities and marketing strategies and understanding companies' procurement processes. Because if you are helping them to be better business people, it will help to create the engagement, not just with your organization, but with other organizations as well. Are you talking to your suppliers that are not diversity owned? Are you talking to them about their tier 2? Are you talking to them about who they're working with and their contractors and suppliers? Are you making sure they have the same values and standards around diversity and equity and inclusion that you do? Do you include language in your contracts? You know, there was a letter that went out from the attorneys general a few weeks ago, primarily Republican attorney generals. And they sent it to 100 of the top CEOs, the Fortune 100 CEOs. And they were basically saying that, look, you heard from SCOTUS about the universities and the colleges, and you can't use race now in trying to admit students. It can't be a factor in how you do it. And so we're telling you, companies, that if you use race in how you are hiring people, in that decision, and that's the decision of why you're hiring, then we're coming after you. They also mention contracting in that letter. If you are hiring and doing spend with diverse suppliers just because they're diverse, we're coming after you. And you know, there's an assumption that because you're a diverse supplier, that you're inferior, that your product isn't worthy, that the partnership isn't worthy. It's the same thing sometimes, the assumption with diverse candidates. But we know that we are not inferior, we are not unintelligent, we have great products, services, and consulting to offer. And so to those of you that are here and you're representing your companies, I implore you, if you aren't being inclusive and planning it, integrating it into your business strategies, you are being unintentionally exclusive. So I implore you to work with these organizations, these entrepreneurs, start programs, start education programs, start partnerships, fund these types of exhibits and these summits. And I have kudos and thank you to all of the sponsors here that are working with these diverse suppliers. I got an earful from Representative Brown when I was coming back from the airport. He has a lot of things to say about what we're doing in the state of Kentucky around supplier diversity. And he's right. We need to be doing more, not just in the state of Kentucky, but across the organization. And you all are going to lead the way in doing it. The MBE is going to lead the way in doing it. It does my heart good to see all of you in the room with the same purpose and the same vision and same values. So keep moving forward, keep doing what you're doing, because I know that you're going to be successful. I know you're going to break the chain. I know you're going to be examples for other organizations that aren't in the room here today, that don't see the value in it, that don't understand the impact that it's making onto the U.S. economy by having spend with diverse suppliers. So with that, I want to say thank you. I appreciate all of you, and thank you for the warm welcome home to Bluegrass State.
Everybody tried to turn DEI into a negative connotation. We see what the Supreme Court did. We see what some state legislatures are trying to do. How do we combat that? And is it a problem? Do you think it's a problem?
The thing is that these headwinds, we knew that they were coming. We knew that there was going to be challenges. There are third-party advocacy groups that are being funded by individuals that do not embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I say that when it comes to corporations and companies, there's concern in the DE&I community, of course, because it makes our job, very, very challenging. But the difference between colleges and universities that were allowed to consider race in the selection of students When it came to corporate America, we're governed by Title VII of the Affirmative Action Rights in the Civil Rights Act. And that basically, since its inception in the 60s, we've never been able to hire based on race, based on gender, sexual orientation, religious belief, et cetera. We've never been able to do that in corporate America, in companies. And so the letter from the attorneys general was appreciated. They were telling us something we didn't already know. But the thing is, they're thinking that we're disguising diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, and we're doing that work which is unlawful. And what I want to reiterate is the fact that we don't need to subscribe to saying that we're lowering the performance bar when it comes to hiring by bringing in persons of color and women, et cetera, and those that are diverse. We're not. We are going and doing all of the things that we need to be doing to make sure that we're hiring the best candidates. And those best candidates come from all walks of life, look at all different ways, and we just have to understand that and support that. The things that we're doing are still work that we should be doing in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We should be going out to the HBCUs, and for those of you who don't know, it's the historic black colleges and universities. We should be going to the communities where the diverse candidates are. We should be going to career fairs like the National Black MBA, the Prospanica, Disability In, the conferences for women. We should be going to those conferences and those summits and those career fairs and talking about our organizations and basically casting a broad net out in our sourcing strategies. And when you do that, candidates will apply for your jobs. And we assume that all candidates that we have bring through to interview, that they're all qualified, regardless of what they look like. So again, that's the bias. We have to shake off that bias that people have, that the work that we're doing in diversity, equity, and inclusion is about lowering the bar on performance. It's not about lowering the bar. It's about widening the gate. That's what we want to do. We want to make equal opportunity for everyone. Some people we know had to get 3 rocks or 2 rocks because of the background that they have, the challenges that they face for whatever reason. But we know we still have to do this work, and we're going to continue to keep doing it. We're partnering with our legal colleagues to make sure that we're staying on the right side of the law, but also, very importantly, and much more importantly from my standpoint, we want to stay on the right side of the law, but we want to stay on the right side of history. That's what we want to do.
Why do you think that they're trying to turn negative? Some people are
They're trying to turn it negative for the same reason they've been trying to turn it negative for centuries. The world, and especially the United States, the demographics of the United States are changing drastically. The 2010 census, U.S. Census, the difference between the 2020 census is vastly different in what the makeup is of the United States. We used to call the United States the melting pot. Remember back in the day? It's the melting pot. What we're seeing now is an individual person is a melting pot. The intersectionality of all the different identities is huge, especially with the incoming generations that we see, especially coming into the workplace. Generation Y and Generation Z, they are the most diverse that we have ever seen in the history of the United States. And that sparks fear into those that have had the positions of power in this country for centuries. And so when they see the changing that's happening across the United States, they're starting to get fearful. And fear causes certain behaviors. And those behaviors are a lot of times negative. And so there's fear, there's greed, there's the politics. If you can politicize whether you wear a mask or not, you can politicize diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so it doesn't surprise me that this is happening, especially as we come into 2024 in a presidential campaign. It doesn't surprise me at all. But I just think that if we just say simply We want an inclusive society where everyone feels a sense of belonging, where everyone feels value, no matter what you look like, no matter how you identify. That's what we're striving for. And if we just can bring people together with those two statements, we want an inclusive society where everyone feels belong, where everyone feels valued. If we can get everybody to agree on that, I'm sure that this too shall pass, and we can start coming to some solutions that will help us to bring this country forward.
What is the biggest mistake organizations make regarding diversity and inclusion?
Doing a lot of talk, doing a lot of this, and not doing the actions. I talked about 2020, May 26, when George Floyd died. And just all of it was all over social media, the statements of solidarity. And then year one, it started to taper off, year two. But it's not just about the statements. What people look at, what your employees look at, what your customers look at, they look at your actions. And companies have got to do as best a job as they can of putting action to their words. If you truly have a statement of solidarity, if you truly believe in diversity, equity, inclusion, then you're going to have to believe in it when stakes are high, when you start getting challenges from some of your customers, when you start getting challenged from some employees who don't necessarily embrace it. And you have to don't personalize it, but what I tell our senior executives when they get questions around it is, you talk about it from the standpoint of the culture and the values and the standards of the organization. It's what is ingrained in our values and our standards. And if this is not what you believe in, if you aren't aligned with where our company stands, then perhaps this isn't the organization for you. And I think that's what we need to do. You can't, I was telling some folks the other day, you can't fold like a lawn chair in a hurricane. You have to have the courage of your convictions. People will respect you for that. Even if your customer says, you know what, I don't want to do business with you. I don't believe in this. That's okay. There's more customers where those came from. For every one customer you might lose, there'll be 5, 6, 7, 8 more, especially in this day and age. Millennials are the largest generation in the workforce. Generation X and boomers, we don't believe that, but they are. And Generation Z is starting to just really raise up. And so the melting pot of the intersection of those individuals globally is amazing. It is amazing. So that's what I would say. Do not fold like a lawn chair in a hurricane. Stand by the courage of your convictions. Have dignity, have respect, have conviction in what you do.
Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Celeste Warren. Kernels of knowledge you can take and apply in your business. It's been a great MBE. Thank you guys so much. I'd like all the committee members and the volunteers of the MBE, please stand. I work with a great team. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to all of our sponsors, Fifth Third Bank, Toyota, University of Kentucky, the City of Lexington, Commerce Lexington, Fayette County Public Schools, Elaine Allen, Kentucky Innovations, Bluegrass Airport, Chase, PNC, KCTCS, LM Communications, Traditional Bank, Messer, Louisville Water, AARP, Lexington Police Department, Westbanco, and the Hyatt Regency. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for making this a great MBE. Thank you so much.